I was in Japan, and I was traveling on a train, because there's train networks all through Japan. And this route particularly took me from my hometown in Isahaya, and it was a train that was like a 2-car at most, and it had a diesel engine, and it would run us along the coast. You always travel around the coast, because as soon as you get towards the interior of the islands, it's totally mountainous. So it would follow us around, it would follow the mountain around and take me to my classroom. And one night I was coming home, and the way it worked, I'd catch that last train, it's nighttime, and I'd catch that last train, that last run back to Isahaya, because Shimabara was kind of on the fringe, a very small town, a historic town, but very small. And I remember I was traveling on the train, and usually the trains were basically empty. Maybe there were a few students coming back from their cram schools and their after-school clubs. This train had one family, and they had a daughter who was on the train. She was probably 6-7 years old, and I'm there, and I'm clearly the gaijin. I'm the foreigner on the train, and they were sitting next to me, and so she's staring at me because I look very different. And so I smile and I engage with the family a little bit, but I don't speak the language. There's very little I can say. And so I pull out some of my games that I do, my English games that I do with my students, and I just start playing games with her and showing her how the game is played. And there's a lot of confusion, a lot of probably misunderstanding, but a lot of laughing. It was a lot of fun. And I got home that night, and I thought a lot about, how do I connect with these people? How do I reach these people? That family on the train, I never saw them again. I had one interaction with them. And I thought, how can we make a difference? How can we impact somebody and show them the love of Christ? I didn't know the language. I had my limitations. I was only there for a year on AIM as an English teacher. And those kind of questions began to really plague me, and I really thought about them a lot as I was reading and as I was studying. And with that interaction, I realized at that point the best I can do is try to show them God's love, to be friendly, to be kind, and to pray for them. And it took me about a year, towards the end of my year, before my language competency was enough to have basic conversations. But I found a year living in community with these families as a teacher, as their sensei. It made inroads into those cities. The nearest church for me was about a 3-hour commute. I had to take a couple trains, and my Sunday commute would be getting on the train quite early, traveling a couple hours, spending the day with the church family in Fukuoka, and coming back. And so I can only speak from my context, and I can only speak from my experiences, because there's many different parts of Japan, there's different cities, different regions, and there's different missionary and church presence and establishments in those regions. But where I was in Kyushu, which was the lower island of the 3 main islands, we had our one congregation in Fukuoka, which was just a handful of us who met once a week. At least I was only able to meet with them once a week, given my distance and timeline for my job. But I lived very isolated from a family of believers. And when I looked around, I thought about Paul going out and his context of being, yes, Roman, but also being a Jew and having a very different social map than those around him. Yet the church prospered around the Mediterranean within the Roman Empire in a context that was very different than Palestinian Judaism. And so I thought a lot about it, and for my context where I was, I realized we just need people. We need someone to go to these regions, maybe as appointed missionary, maybe as fully supported, or maybe the route that I took where you're self-supported and you're maybe teaching, I found that for my experiences, my occupation actually gave me inroads into a new community. It connected me with the families, with the people. And maybe that's something that we need. And, you know, Jesus told the disciples to go out into all the world and to proclaim the gospel. And Matthew's gospel is very much situated in Palestine, around Jerusalem and Galilee. And Jesus commissions his disciples out, and they go into a very different context, Paul especially, and they're traveling around the Mediterranean. They're going to different cities, different cultures, and they are able to spread the gospel. But it took time and it took commitment. And so I think that when we're praying for Japan, one of the most important things we can do is pray that the Lord of the harvest would send out laborers into the harvest. And Japan needs people. Kyushu needs people. Nagasaki needs people to go out, to live in community with the Japanese people, to love them like Christ has loved us, and show